Hi guys, I am going to work through the Conics review with you guys. I wish that I could actually do this in person with you guys, but we'll just have to make do. So starting off, we're doing circles. I am also making do with my dot cam so that I can physically write on here. So like when it says change this circle, I'm just going to draw it on the graph and so forth. So it says identify the center. The center is always the opposite of the signs because the formula itself is minus. So minus a negative would be how I got that positive. So -3, 0. Radius squared is 9, so if you think about that as an equation, r must equal 3. Now, yes, in algebra, it's positive or -3. However, when we're thinking about a radius, a negative radius does not make sense. So, you would move this circle over to here in your Google Slides. Okay, number 2, you would have +12 plus 0. It is perfectly acceptable whenever you turn in your work for your test to write it like this. And remember, it equals r squared, so that's 3 squared, so this should be 9. If you delete this box, that's cool. That works too. Alright, a lot of us were getting tripped up on this when we were doing this last week. If we have the ends of the diameter to find the center, so think about, you have a circle, you got a diameter, goes all the way across. The center has to be right in the middle. Looks like I drew a Pokeball there. The center has to be right in the middle. So -19 plus -7 is -26 divided by 2 is -13. 9 plus 15 is 24 divided by 2 is 12. So plus 13 minus 12. All right. For the radius, we want to know the distance from the center to one of the edges. It does not matter which edge because you are talking about the same distance. So if I just use the first point that's there, so -19 minus -13 quantity squared plus 12, oops, make sure to go in the same order, 9 minus 12 quantity squared. I was going to take the easy way out and use my calculator. Looks like I don't have it right beside me like I had planned. Got a feeling a little boy named Walker took it from me. And I don't know where my phone is. Give me just a second. Miss Ryder being her normal self. Alright, so as far as apps go, you can have the Desmos Scientific, you can have Desmos. There's also one called Calculator 84, which if you open it, hey, that type of calculator looks familiar. Alright, so I'm going to see what the number underneath the square root is first. Alright. So I get the square root of 45. And if I square that, I get 45. Okay. Yes, I'm double checking that with my key to make sure that that's what they got. All right. Number 4, the last part, completing the square. If you haven't noticed, you have to complete the square for all 4 conic sections. So make sure that we understand how to do that, okay? First, you want to group your terms together. So the x's together and the y's together. Then I put the constant on the other side. Remember to change a positive to the other side, it becomes negative. Each time I'm going to take the term here and divide it by 2 and then square it. So divided by 2 is 4, squared is 16. Divided by 2 is negative 11, squared is 121. Now, science class, your scale, it's balanced. So if I add something to these, to both of these here, I have to add it to the other side as well. So I get 49 here. And here, it's always this number divided by 2, so positive 4, negative 11. Another way to think about this is what multiplies to get 16 and adds to get 8? Oh, that's 4 and 4. So x plus 4 times x plus 4 is the way that factors. Same here, what multiplies to get 121 but adds to get negative 22? That's negative 11 and negative 11. Why would we ever want to do this? Well, looking at it in this order, I can't tell you where the center is. I can't tell you what the radius is just by looking at it. However, here I know that the center is negative 4, 11, and it has a radius of 7. So my life just got easier in understanding that one. All right, this one printed weird. It didn't like the parabola, so just, wasted my ink in a big black blob. So that's all right. I do have your equations at the top there. All right, we want to identify the vertex, the focus, and the directrix. Then we're going to sketch the graph. So the vertex is the easiest. Opposite the x, opposite the y. Okay. I need to decide which way it opens. It's a y squared instead of an x squared, so that means it's going to open sideways. And one of my numbers is negative. So that means that it's going to open this way. And then to figure out what P is, whatever the number is, I call it the stretch, I'm going to set that equal to 4P. Why 4P? Because if I go back and look at the equation, the entire thing must equal 4P. So in this case, P equals negative 1. P is typically positive just because it's a distance. So when you're thinking about measuring with a ruler, you don't say it's negative 1 centimeters. But for this sake, it's fine. It's telling us that the focus is going to be 1 away from the vertex. And I already know that it's opening this way. So that puts my focus at negative 6, negative 6. Even if my problem doesn't tell me to graph, I'm still sketching myself a little graph over in the corner. Otherwise, my brain is not functioning well. The directrix is 1 in the other direction, and it can never touch the parabola. So the only way that happens is if it's a vertical line. Remember, vertical lines are x equals, and horizontal is y equals. If you just give me a number there, that is wrong. You have to have x equals or y equals to make that a actual line. Okay? right, moving right along. Okay, this is the one where I was talking about, I would always sketch myself a little picture. So for the test, as you're taking the test, make sure that you check yourself, like you're showing me this. If you're showing me this, you're showing me that you're understanding at least something going on. All right, so vertex at -4, 2. Directrix at x equals -5, so that means a vertical line. So a vertical line here, the parabola can never touch it, so it must open this way to never touch the directrix. It is 1 distance away, so P is 1. So remember this number right here is 4P. So what is 4 times 1? Well, that's 4. All right, if it is going sideways, the Y must be squared. And 2 goes with Y, so opposite. X is +4, always opposite. What happens if I'm given the focus and the directrix? Again, I'm going to sketch myself a picture here. The directrix is at y equals -9. The focus is at 8, -7. So if we think about what does the parabola have to look like so that the focus is inside of the parabola and the directrix is never touching it, it must go directly through the middle here. So that's going to put the vertex at 8, -8. It's going to open up, so that means that x is positive. So x and, let's see, the x value here is +8, so -8. Y here will be +8. And the last part here, P, so if the vertex is here, the distance right there is just 1. So 4P, so 4 times 1 would have to be 4. Okay. Completing the square, let's see here. We have, the x's are already grouped. You're going to move that 55 over here to get it out of the way. So on this side, if I think about factoring out the 2 to the front, that means that I would be left with 10 here instead of 20, because 2 times 10 is 20. Okay. Now, this right here would be my b over 2 squared. So b being 10 divided by 2 is 5, squared is 25. Now, I did not just add 25 to this side. I added 2 times 25, which is 50. Oh, hold on. I actually helped you out here. You did want to just put 25, but notice I have a 2 there. That's because 2 times 25 is saying that I added 50, not just 25. So if you were getting wrong answers on one side of the equation when completing the square, that's probably what you did. Okay, so -55 plus 50 is -5. The 2's out front here. This is going to factor as x minus 5 times x minus 5. So these can be copied and pasted down. Now, if it is being multiplied by 2, and I want to get rid of it, that would be dividing by 2. It's not typically proper to put dividing by 2, so instead you would say multiplying by 1/2. Either way, that would work. All right, ellipses. I personally think ellipses are easier than parabolas. I think that order of easiness would go circles, ellipses, parabolas, hyperbolas. But your book follows it in a different order, so I went in that different order. Whatever. Okay, so the center is just like in a circle. So in this case, it's going to be -3, 0. The vertices are the larger numbers, so 49, the square root of that is 7. Notice that it goes, so A equals 7, B equals 4. So that means that I'm going to go 7 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. 7 up and 7 down. And for this one, I'm going to go 4 and 4. Okay, you can see the ink from me writing on the previous slides. Anyway, that is my ellipse. So that I would have moved that over and restretched it. That puts my vertices at -3, 7 and -3, -7. And co-vertices at 1, 0 and -7, 0. How do I know which ones are vertices and which ones are co-vertices? The bigger stretch is the vertice. It takes precedent. And then the shorter one is the co-vertices. Alright. This is where my print started getting out of order. So bear with me for just a second. That was number 9. Here we go, 10 and 11. Okay, so this one, how do I know where the center is? Well, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, that puts me right in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the very center of that ellipse. And that happens to be at -1, 1. So +1, -1. Okay. What was my distance? I've already counted once, but I'll do it again. 2, 3, 4, 5. So the up and down, which is y, was 5 squared, which is 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 squared is 36. So a lot of us were missing how to graph, given the equation, given the graph, how to write the equation. Not a hard problem. We were overthinking that. I don't know if we are starting to rely on apps and the app can't help us if we have a picture of a graph or what's going on, but make sure we know how to do that. All right. So for the center here, oops, I went up too far, sorry. I want to do the midpoint. Midpoint, what do we do? Add them together and divide by 2. So 12 plus -14 is -2. Divided by 2 is -1. And then -7 plus -7 is -14. Divided by 2 is -7. Also know that if those are the same, the center has to be right there in the middle of it. All right, so we need to determine, let's see, vertices. What's the distance there? So from 12 to -1 is a distance of 13. So A has to be 13. C, which is the distance of the foci to the center, is, let's see, from 11 to -1 would be 12. So we have 13 squared minus b squared equals 12 squared. (144 minus 169 is negative 25. That really means b squared equals 25, so b must equal 5. Okay, so 13 squared is 169, and 5 squared is 25. If I think about these points here, they're horizontal from the center, so I know that they're going to go under the x. That's how I knew that one was A and not that one. Okay. All right, number 12, completing the square. So we're going to reorder them. We're going to do 9x squared plus 54x, and then plus 4y squared plus 32y, and then I moved my 1 over. Okay. So in this problem, I have to factor out the 9. So 9 times blank gives me 54x. Well, that would be 6x. This is where I'm going to do b over 2 squared. So b being 6, divided by 2 is 3, squared is 9. If I add 9 there, I got to add 9 here. Notice I multiplied it by 9 because of this. I factored out a 4 here, so 32 divided by 4 is 8. Divided by 2 is 4, squared is 16. Again, notice that on the other side I had 4 times that number for that reason. So factoring here, I get plus 3 and plus 4. Negative 1 plus 9 times 9 plus 4 times 16 is 144. Remember, for an ellipse, we always want to set it equal to 1, so I'm going to divide everything by 144 and reduce those fractions. So think about those fractions being reduced there. So here, 9 over 144th becomes 1/16. 4 over 144 becomes 1/36. So looking at this, I had no idea where the center is. I have no idea what the vertices or co-vertices look like. But when I set it equal to 1, I have that completely filled out. All right. Number 13, we are now switching over to hyperbola. So how do I know which way a hyperbola opens? If x comes first, it will always open going towards the x-axis. So think about opening along the x-axis. If y came first, it would tilt and go up and down. All right, so my center is -1, -1. Think about this being a fraction. So my vertices are 1 away from each side, and it opens sideways. So that's how I know where my vertices are. So -2, -1, and 0, -1. Co-vertices are the other way around. So -1, 0, and -1, -2. All right. So asymptotes are confusing, right? So for asymptotes, I always make a box around. So think about those 4 vertices and like drawing usually it's a rectangle. In this case, it is a square, which is a rectangle, but the asymptotes go from corner to corner of those boxes. So had I been on my computer doing this and moving the red lines, this is where I would cover the red lines. Okay. What that does is that means that my parabola that create the hyperbolas, so remember, two parabolas create the hyperbolas, follow those lines. Like, that's how it opens. Okay, so mine doesn't look too off, but like, here's what is printed from my answer key. Like, I didn't draw this, this was pre-drawn. Okay, and again, my computer wasted ink, but whatever. All right, moving right along. 14, again, here's my center, so that's at -3, 2, so +3, oh, hold on. Let's clear up something else before we write that part. Notice it goes up and down, so Y is going to go first this time. So the 3 is actually going to go in this box with X. And the 2 will go with Y. So X value goes with X value, Y value goes with Y value. Okay. So what's the distance here? 1, 2, 3. 3 squared is 9. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look, there is a rectangle here. And I can see that it's 1, 2 away, so 2 squared is 4. Your other thought that you could think about is the slope is up 3 over 2, and I know that the slope for this is B over A. Well, if that is 3, rise over run has to be 2, and 2 squared is 4. Just different way to think of it, same answer. Okay? 15, midpoint, what do we do? Add them together and divide by 2. So you should get -2, 4 according to my key. So let's look at that. Another way you can kind of cheat a little bit. The covertice where it's the same, center has to be the same. The vertices where it's the same, the center has to be the same. Okay, if I think about on a graph where the vertices are plotted, so 1, 4 and -5, 4, they are horizontal from each other, meaning they have to open sideways, which tells me that X must go first. Okay, so from -2 to -5, how far is that? Well, that's 3 distance-wise, right? So if I was at -2, I'd go 3 to get to -5. Squared is 9. Covertice from 4 to 14 is 10. 10 squared is 100. All right, and finally, to the last one. Right. Okay, so reorder, we want Y terms first because Y is positive, X is negative. So let's put our Y term first. Notice I moved 368 over to be positive. All right. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Squared is 100. I factored out a 4 there. So 4 times blank is 72. Oh, and here's something else that I did. I factored out a -4. So negative times positive will give me negative. 18 divided by 2 is 9. Squared is 81. Okay. So typing that in my calculator, I get 144. How does this factor? Divided by 2 is negative 10. Divided by 2 is positive 9. If you can hear that dog, I apologize. It's not mine. It's the neighbor's. That's fun. Okay. And then I want to divide by 144 all the way across. So this one doesn't reduce, so it's 1 over 144. 4 over 144 becomes 1 over 36. I now know that this is, from looking here, I couldn't tell a whole lot about it. However, looking here, I can tell that it is a hyperbola that opens up and down. Its center is at negative 9, 10. And I can graph it because I know what A and B are. All right, so I gave you a week to complete this on your own. If you have struggled through it, I promise you no more than the person who just didn't do anything at all and then plans on winging it on the test. Thank you for your hard work. It should pay off on the test. Make sure to show your work on your test. If you do not show your work, I cannot give you full credit. Okay? I understand that some of it is harder to show than others, but show everything that you can to show me that you really know what's going on with Conics. Okay? Best of luck. You have all week. It must be your work, not your buddy's work, not your parents' work, your work. And after that, it's only 3 more little mini lessons. No, we're not going to do a big test over it, and you will be done. You will be free. So take care. I miss you. And again, I wish we could have done this in person instead of through a doc cam where you just see my hand. Miss you guys.